What should you do when a burglar breaks into your house? They're wielding a machete, they're looking crazed, and they're demanding your belongings. In that split second, you must make a decision. You have to decide, do you call the police and hope that they arrive before you're hogtied and you're assaulted and your belongings abscond into the night? Or you could hand over your belongings and comply, but risk the burglar really just being sadistic and malicious and having other more nefarious intentions, hog-tying you and then assaulting you, or worse. Or alternatively, you could try to resist, potentially risking your life in so doing, but hoping to get the upper hand, especially if you've got numbers on your side. But what happens if the burglar is on drugs and dies from complications during the scuffle? Perhaps they pass out or they enter into cardiac arrest or something else, and then the police start to investigate. Or what happens if you ward them off with a knife, but then they're injured or they're killed, and there's an investigation? What happens then? Are you tied up in court for years, potentially churning through all of your life savings as you try to defend yourself? Now, this is a situation that many Australians find themselves in. Recently, for example, a woman broke into a house in Victoria. She threatened the occupants with a knife, but they restrained her. She died sometime after she was restrained. We don't know the exact cause of death, but one can't help but wonder whether drugs might have played a role. In any case, there's no allegation at the moment the occupants acted in any way untoward. But the occupants are now under suspicion of using excessive force and potentially causing the death. Then there's the incident where a son defended his father from a break-in, getting stabbed for his trouble. He also restrained the burglar, but in so doing risked criminal penalties himself. In all of these cases, the homeowners have a decision. They can either comply, roll over, and get robbed, and then risk further robberies as robbers realize they're an easy target, coming back again and again because they realize the homeowner won't defend themselves. Or they can try to resist the burglar, in so doing putting themselves in danger, but also risking criminal penalties if something goes wrong and the burglar happens to die, even though it's a case of F around and find out. And this is a problem, because crimes have gone up, especially in Victoria, with it being reported the Victorian crime rate has hit a high since the past 5 years, and it seems to just be on an upward trajectory, increasing to even higher rates than it was before COVID, when people were under lockdown. In essence, Victoria has a crime problem, and the machete ban is not going to do anything about it. I've talked about the machete ban in a prior video, but clearly it is going to be pointless, because the criminals are not going to hand in their machetes to the police. But not only that, machetes can come across the border. It's easy to get them in from South Australia, or potentially Tasmania, or New South Wales. All of these are easy trips. They're easy trips where people can avoid the machete ban in Victoria. So in essence, only law-abiding citizens are being impacted by this, and the criminals can easily find a way around it. And indeed, even if you ban machetes, well, a burglar can come in with a large carving knife or a meat cleaver, and they can still cause a lot of damage and get the job done. The short of it is the Victorian government is trying to be seen to do something about the crime wave, without actually really doing anything about it. For example, Victoria suggests they're going to have very tough bail laws, but at the moment, bail seems to be given out willy-nilly, even to violent criminals. I dare say that if you go and burgle someone's house, you shouldn't be given bail, or at least there should be a presumption against giving bail in those circumstances, because that signal is important, showing people that they're going to be arrested, they're going to be charged, they're going to be held potentially without bail, and they're going to be imprisoned if they commit these violent acts is important. Furthermore, showing burglars that homeowners are on the side of the law is also important. And this is why we've seen the push for things like castle law come in Victoria. The idea that there's a presumption that a homeowner can use force to defend themselves. Now, of course, at the moment, you can use force in self-defense, but exactly what constitutes excessive force, and therefore what is illegal, is a little bit nebulous. And sometimes the homeowner is seen as the easy target that is hit with penalties, because it's easy for the police to charge someone and then the charge get thrown out or that fail at court than it is for them to not charge someone to begin with. So therefore, castle law gives a presumption people are defending themselves when someone breaks into their house, and gives a presumption that their force is justified. Now clearly, if someone acts sadistically, for example, they decide to torture a burglar, that would not be protected. However, ordinary force would be, and the law would be on the homeowner's side. It appears the government in Victoria is more concerned about one sadistic homeowner going too far than they are about the burglars inflicting harm and damage on the homeowners. It seems very clear to me that the government isn't really on the side of people defending their own assets. If we look specifically at Victoria, this should not be a surprise, because the government treats everyone's assets as really being the government's assets. The government seems to treat it as an act of benevolence if they let you keep any of your own hard-earned money. It should come as no surprise, therefore, that they don't really care if your assets are actually stolen, because they aren't really your assets to begin with, at least according to the government. Now, of course, Victoria is not alone in this, but it is by far the worst. And I'd have a lot of sympathy for Victorians if they didn't keep voting in this group of clowns. Now, clearly, Brad Batten is not doing a brilliant job in Victoria. He is once again falling into the trap the Liberal Party always falls into, which is dithering and prevaricating. Sky News in particular has dug into this. For example, Victoria is pushing ahead with a treaty. The Liberals oppose the treaty, but they won't commit to repealing it, which is astounding to me. You would have thought that would be an easy thing to say, that you will commit to repealing the treaty. But the Liberals seem to want to go through some lengthy process to decide what the next step is going to be. They dither, they prevaricate, and they don't have clear cut-through. That's why they are losing. It's not due to them being so-called too conservative or too right-wing. It's because they dither, they prevaricate, and they seem to be without a clear vision. That's why they lose. And the Victorian Liberals seem to be set to lose in the next election. I have some sympathy for the Victorians that are trapped by their own fellow citizens who keep voting for these idiots. However, Victoria is a basket case. We can just hope that it doesn't spread out into the rest of Australia. The unfortunate thing, however, is the Victorians still vote in the federal elections, and therefore they still vote for idiots at the federal level. Therefore, they inflict this stupidity upon the rest of us. And of course, it's not just Victoria. We've had issues like this in Queensland before the Crisafulli government took over. Similarly, there have been issues like this in the Northern Territory for quite some time now. But they've gotten worse in Victoria, and Victoria had a chance to stop this getting out of hand. But the government willfully ignores all of the steps they need to take. The government is willfully blind to everything they need to do to stop crime getting out of hand. The government does not seem to care. Indeed, the only thing the Victorian government seemed to actually care about policing were lockdowns during the pandemic and now traffic fines, and things that would potentially raise revenue for the government, at least in the short term. Something that Topher Field recently lambasted in one of his recent videos, and I would encourage you to check out his work. And I absolutely agree with him about what is going wrong. Anyway, you can let me know your thoughts about it in the comments below, and hopefully I'll see you next time as well.